So one thing we can say, one thing that is beyond dispute, is that the South American teams came to this Club World Cup with a chip on both shoulders and a fire in their chests. I don't know what's going on over there. Maybe they're tired of being treated like the undercard. But whatever it is, they are making the so-called European elites look like they just wandered into a different sport. First, Botafogo stunned Paris Saint-Germain. 1-0. Clean, controlled, almost surgical. And now Flamengo, with all their drama and color and chaos, beat Chelsea 3-1. That's not a win, that's an announcement. And Chelsea, poor Chelsea, were on the wrong end of a samba lesson dressed up as a football match. The first half was fascinating, not for what we thought it would be, but for what it actually became. Chelsea started this match like they wanted to make a point. High tempo, pressing with energy, Moises Caicedo buzzing around like he had a third lung. And then there was Pedro Neto. Yes, that Pedro Neto. Finishing off a break with a composed left-footer into the center of the goal. 12 minutes in, 1-0 to Chelsea, and you could feel the Premier League ego waking up and stretching its legs. Like, oh, here we go. This is our world now. But Flamengo didn't blink. They just kept playing their football, moving the ball like it owed them money, finding space in a phone booth. What Flamengo do better than most is absorb. They let Chelsea have their adrenaline, let them sprint and shout and commit bodies forward. But every time the ball came back into red and black possession, there was calm. There was rhythm. Now you could see moments where Chelsea could have gone 2-0 up. Malo Gusto had a decent effort from range, Delap got a shot off, and Levi Colwill had a free header that he ballooned like someone told him the net was allergic to footballs. But it didn't happen. And every missed chance from Chelsea was like feeding confidence into Flamengo's bloodstream. Flamengo just built pressure in waves. Not overwhelming, but persistent. A corner here, a cross there, an Arrascaeta pass that nearly split the universe in half. There was something inevitable brewing. Robert Sanchez deserves a whole paragraph of gratitude for how many times he bailed Chelsea out in that first half. Saved Wesley's drive, kept out a Leo Pereira header, punched and parried like his gloves were magnetized. The guy was playing like he was defending Buckingham Palace. But here's the thing. Saving shots is only half the battle. When you're absorbing like that, you're inviting trouble. And Flamengo? They don't need an invitation. They RSVP'd to chaos years ago. By the time we hit halftime, Chelsea had the lead. Sure. 1-0. But you couldn't shake the feeling that it was a lie. Not a malicious lie. Just one of those accidental football fibs that happens when a team scores early and then kind of forgets that the match is still going. The scoreline didn't reflect the rhythm. Flamengo had control, not of the scoreboard, but of the mood. And that's more dangerous. So we went into halftime with this strange energy. Chelsea ahead but wobbling. Flamengo behind, but gaining altitude. It felt like that slow-motion moment in a thriller where someone lights the fuse. You don't know how long the burn is, but you know something's about to go boom. And yeah, the second half? That's when it did. It started with a corner. Of course it did. Football loves its poetic symmetry. Pressure, corner. And then boom. Just 4 minutes into the second half, Flamengo tie it up. Gonzalo Plata with the kind of delivery that makes defenders question their life choices. Bruno Henrique rising like it's the World Cup final and nodding it down into chaos, and suddenly it's 1-1. And here's what's wild. The goal didn't just change the score. It changed the atmosphere of the match. You could feel it through the screen. Chelsea looked stunned, like they couldn't believe Flamengo had the audacity to respond. And Flamengo, they didn't celebrate like it was a surprise. They celebrated like it was math, like 1 + 1 = us scoring. From there, Chelsea's discipline just leaked. Slowly at first. A misplaced pass here, a cheap foul there, then more. You know that feeling when a table's about to collapse, but it's still technically upright? That was Chelsea. Still standing, but shaking. Just enough for you to start backing away with your drink in hand. And then comes the red card. Nicholas Jackson, for reasons that only he and possibly a licensed therapist understand, decides to do his best impersonation of someone auditioning for a crime docuseries. It's reckless. It's needless. It's one of those fouls where you immediately know what's coming next. Red card. Gone. Chelsea down to 10, 70 minutes on the clock, and suddenly it's like watching a boat spring a leak during a hurricane. Flamengo, now smelling blood, start turning the screws. They're not reckless with it, though. That's what makes this team different. They don't just fling themselves forward like toddlers on a sugar high. They build. They test. They wait for the seams to split. And at minute 64, the seams tear. Another corner, another goal. Danilo this time. Right place, right time. Calm finish. 2-1. And by now, it's starting to feel like a foregone conclusion. Chelsea aren't just losing, they're shrinking. Every pass is hesitant, every touch a little heavier. Reece James is subbed off. Palmer, too. They're throwing on fresh legs like Band-Aids on a leaking dam. But you don't fix spiritual collapse with substitutions. Flamengo weren't just better technically, they believed more. You could see it in how they moved, how they talked, how they responded to every setback with even more bite. And then, minute 82, the dagger. Wallace Yan, who wasn't even on the pitch 20 minutes earlier, slides in a third goal after a beautiful assist from, you guessed it, Gonzalo Plata again. 3-1. Clinical. Chelsea defenders just looking around like passengers in the aftermath of a car crash, trying to figure out who fell asleep at the wheel. The final minutes were just Flamengo playing with their food. Chelsea tried. A couple of blocked shots, a Guiu effort that forced a save, but there was nothing behind it. No belief. Just movement for the sake of it. And when the whistle blew, it wasn't just the end of the match, it felt like the end of Chelsea's illusion that they were in control at any point after minute 15. Flamengo walked off like it was a scrimmage, like they'd just done what they always knew they could do. And you had to sit back and ask yourself, was this an upset? Or are we just seeing the balance of power shift in real time in front of our disbelieving eyes? Let's talk about the two teams. Not just who won and who didn't, that's already clear, but who they are at their core. Because if this match did anything, it cracked both clubs open and gave us a peek inside. Chelsea are a team built like a luxury yacht, expensive, shiny, photogenic, but you're never quite sure who's steering it. They've got players with six-figure haircuts and World Cup resumes, but put them under pressure and it all gets squeaky. This squad doesn't lack talent. They lack cohesion. They play like a group project where everyone showed up late and nobody read the brief. Pedro Neto's opening goal should have been the spark. It was a great piece of transition football. Fast, purposeful, a statement. But what followed was not dominance. It was drift. Possession without direction. Movement without conviction. Like they were trying to remember what they rehearsed, only to realize the choreography was missing a few pages. You can see what Chelsea want to be. They want to be quick, vertical, brave in possession. But when the opposition doesn't fold, when the match gets gnarly and emotional and chaotic, that's when it unravels. They don't have the spine yet. Not the footballing spine, not the emotional one either. And the red card, that wasn't just frustration, it was panic. Now Flamengo are a beautiful contradiction. They're structured chaos. They play with a freedom that looks improvisational, but underneath it is a pulsing tactical intelligence. You don't just fluke your way to 3 goals against a team like Chelsea. You design it. Look at their second half. How they used the width. How they pinned Chelsea back, not with frantic possession, but with purposeful waves. Bruno Henrique and Gonzalo Plata were relentless. Not just in their running, but in their decision-making. Every pass, every movement had weight. There was a maturity to it. A rhythm that felt earned. And here's what separates them from most teams. They can ride out bad stretches. That first half wasn't going their way. Chelsea had more shots, more energy, more noise, but Flamengo never chased the game. They stayed within themselves. It's like they knew the second act would be theirs, and they were just setting the stage. There's a lesson in that. A lot of teams, when they go a goal down to a Premier League side, they crumble. Or worse, they overreact. Flamengo just blinked slowly and said, "All right, our turn." Tactically, they were brave. They didn't drop deep. They didn't park the bus. They kept their fullbacks high, trusted their midfielders to cover ground, and played through Chelsea's press with the kind of composure that makes fans scream and coaches cry. And when the chances came, clinical, efficient, almost cold-blooded. This wasn't a fluke. This was a performance built on purpose. You felt it, every second. So no, this wasn't David beating Goliath. This was Goliath meeting another Goliath and realizing that their sling wasn't loaded. Chelsea are still a work in progress, a flashy one with terrifying potential. But Flamengo? Flamengo know who they are, and that makes all the difference. Now let's talk individuals. Because yes, football is a team sport. But sometimes the match grabs you by the collar and shoves you face first into someone's performance, saying, look what this human just did. Let's start with Gonzalo Plata. My word. If you didn't know his name before this match, then you do now. He was the metronome, the trickster, the architect. You could almost hear the violin music behind him every time he got the ball on that right wing. He floated, he weaved, he waited. Not for space, but for Chelsea to make the wrong move. Which they did, repeatedly. He had 2 assists, but it felt like he assisted the mood of the entire second half. He had that aura. Bruno Henrique was another standout. Came off the bench like a man with a point to prove and made his case within minutes. That goal was pure striker instinct, sniffing out chaos in the box and tucking it away with the cold efficiency of a hitman in a noir film. Then he got the assist for Danilo's goal. 2 touches, 2 contributions, and the vibe of someone who plays football like it owes him money. And speaking of Danilo, his finish might look simple, but it's everything but. Right place, right time, body calm, mind sharper than a knife in a Michelin star kitchen. Goals like that don't just happen. They're the result of intuition and timing, both of which he had in spades. Now Wallace Yan comes off the bench, joins the chaos, and casually scores the goal that slams the door shut. What a story. What a moment. Flamengo fans will remember that name for a while, and Chelsea fans will try not to. Agustin Rossi in goal didn't have to be spectacular, but when called upon, he answered. That late save against Mark Guiu, crucial, because at 3-2, Chelsea would have had a sniff. At 3-1, they had resignation. On the other side of the emotional spectrum, we have Nicholas Jackson. I don't know what he saw or didn't, but flying into a challenge like that with your team, still clinging to the match, is just self-sabotage. He'll learn, or he won't. Either way, that red card will live in infamy, because it didn't just cost Chelsea a player. It cracked their last bit of belief. Pedro Neto did well in the first half. Goal aside, he was one of the few willing to take players on, to challenge Flamengo's back line. But the second half swallowed him whole. It's not on him alone, but he became another passenger in a sinking ship. Moises Caicedo had flashes, won free kicks, kept it tidy, but he couldn't do it all. It felt like he was plugging holes in a dam with chewing gum by the end. And Cole Palmer? Anonymous. Not invisible, but not present either. Like he was flickering between realities and never fully locked into this one. Robert Sanchez, though, he was heroic. That first half was basically his solo recital. Without him, it could have been 4-1 by halftime. And while the second half collapse wasn't his fault, the contrast between his performance and those in front of him couldn't have been more stark. And that's the thing with this match. It wasn't about one mistake or one moment. It was about a group of individuals from Flamengo who played with clarity and fire, and a group from Chelsea who played like strangers in a hotel lobby, waiting for someone else to speak first. That's what makes football unbearable and magical. You can spend $1 billion building a squad. You can win the press conferences. You can dominate Twitter. But when it's time to kick the ball, you still have to feel it. You have to live it. This has been Across the Pitch. Over and out.